Give it a few seconds while everybody comes in. Good afternoon, everyone. We're just waiting for a few participants to join. We see they're still joining us. Okay, looks like we'll go ahead and get started. This meeting of the Energy Safety Underground Safety Board is now called to order. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today for this workshop on planning and design ticket process in 811. Today, we will discuss the planning and ticket process as it relates to 811. This meeting is an opportunity to share your experiences in planning and design as it pertains to the excavation process and to influence future development of a planning and design ticket. I am Chair Del Toro, and with me is member Bill Johns of the board's Planning Ticket Committee. Are there any other board members present today?
We do have a hand raised from Ron Bianchi. I don't know if he's one of your board members, is he?
Member Bianchini?
Yeah, hold on a second.
We have member Charlin. I believe we have member Johnson as well. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone. Welcome, members. We had a successful workshop on the 22nd of February on non-violation safety issues and investigations led by member Johnson. I'm pleased to see many new and familiar attendees here today. Welcome, everyone. Next slide, please. The agenda for today will begin with public comment before moving into the workshop. During the workshop, member Johns will read each survey question, and then he will open the workshop to responses by participants. Those wishing to provide responses or public comment may do so by submitting them through the webinar audio functions. If you have joined via webinar and would like to make an audio comment on an item during the response or public comment period of the workshop, please indicate that you wish to do so by pressing the raise hand function. Once the response or public comment portion of the workshop begins, participants may dial #2 or #2 when they wish to speak to be placed in a query by the operator. When staff calls your name, you may unmute yourself and may provide your comment. When your comment has concluded, you will be muted again. Next slide, please. We will now proceed to public comment on topics within the board's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda today before moving into the workshop. Those wishing to provide public comments may do so by submitting them through the webinar audio functions. If you have joined via webinar and would like to make an audio comment on an item during the public comment period, please indicate that you wish to do so by pressing the raise hand button. Once the public comment portion of the meeting begins, participants may dial # or then 2 when they wish to speak to be placed in a query by the operator. When staff calls your name, you may unmute yourself, may provide your comment. When your comment has concluded, you will be muted again. Are there any public comments?
There's currently no hands raised.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Thank you. If there are no comments, we will move into the planning ticket workshop, and I will hand the meeting over to member Johns at this time. Member Johns, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Chairperson Del Toro. And yeah, I'm Bill Johns, and want to welcome you to the planning ticket workshop. We appreciate everybody's participation and your time today. And then at this point, I'm just going to do a kind of a rough background on just the idea of planning tickets, the design tickets, and kind of the history, kind of my perspective. I'm looking for everybody else to be participating and kind of bringing their side of the issues to the forefront. But basically, design tickets and has been talked about CGA best practices, and I think people are familiar with the American Society of Civil Engineers 3802 was the SUE, basically substructure utility engineering. It's kind of a standardization of identifying underground facilities, putting a risk factor or a probability factor of how confident you are things are there. So kind of in that same vein, that same committee that developed that, they have approached having design tickets. So that would be, in a simpler form, the idea of giving engineers and people up front information instead of waiting for the excavation to occur, and the excavator out on the site. This is to participate and put the information in the planning drawings up front. So anyway, that's kind of the background. And then I'd like to see if there's any other board members at this time that want to make a comment before we start the workshop.
No comment, Member Johns.
Okay, in that case, you can move ahead to slide number 6. Okay, so here, early effective communication promotes a safer workplace environment. The purpose of this workshop is to understand how designers develop the products used to avoid unsafe contact with buried lines during excavation, understand how operators respond to requests from designers, and we will be using this information in evaluating the value of planning, designing, and project ticket process. So next slide, please. And due to time constraints, we recognize that not all issues and comments can be addressed during the workshop. And we certainly value your opinion and experiences. So surveys were created to provide an extra opportunity to share your expertise with the board. Next slide, please. All right. These are the links to the surveys we are providing. If you do not get an opportunity to share information during the workshop or know someone who could not attend the workshop, we encourage you to use or share the survey link information. So moving on to the workshop, I will present each discussion question, and then I will open the discussion for each question. And then as we do this, just the background, try not to get caught up in potential problems or issues specific to your stakeholder group, but there will be issues if we did have a program down the road. There's cost issues, labor, all kinds of things. But right now, just the effort is to understand and provide your feedback and your guidance in the development. So next slide, please. Okay, discussion question 1 is kind of 2-part here. But what type of projects require advanced planning and design? And what is the desired product of the planning and design process? And this is kind of geared towards the engineers, designers, and stuff. So looking for your input on saying, how you go about planning. These would be preparing the construction drawings, or what ultimately get to the field and get in where the excavation occurs. So.
A reminder to raise the raise hand button. Press that if you have some feedback.
So and so if you would like to respond to discussion 1 questions or make comment, please click the raise hand button or the webinar or dial #2 to be placed in a queue. When staff calls your name, you may unmute yourself and provide your comment. And for everyone's knowledge, we are accepting responses or public comment via the webinar platform. It may take several seconds to ensure that persons requesting comments are able to get their comments heard. Please be patient. And staff, are there any responses or public comments?
There's a raised hand from Marshall Johnson, but we got a couple starting to show up on attendees, but Marshall was first. So Marshall, you want to unmute yourself? And
thank you for that, Mr. Pierce. Member Johns, I just wanted to kind of address the first question regarding requires advanced planning and design, and just want to throw out there that highway projects are definitely things that need to be planned in advance, particularly if you have existing facilities in the area and you may have to move them depending on what project is involved in the highways. So I just wanted to throw that one out, just get conversation started.
Oh, good, thank you. And you're right, that the generation of the SUE process really came from the Department of Transportation. It was kind of geared big projects that they just found that there was enormous sums of money saved by planning up front. I think we've all heard that, you know, SUE saves, for every dollar spent, you can save from $4.62 to, I've heard numbers over $20 per dollar spent. So yeah, thank you, Member Johnson.
okay, the next hand raised from the public is from Gus Sikla. Gus, you should be able to unmute yourself and discuss this question.
Hi, thank you. This is Gus Chikala. I'm with East Bay Mud. I'm in the design side right now. So we operate underground utilities, but I design large diameter pipelines. So obviously we need utility information for the planning and design process. One of the major things in the planning process is we need to do environmental documentation many times for an alignment. And sometimes we go in that blind without knowing what utilities are in the street. It might be so congested. We want to choose an alternate routing. But it's hard to get that information at the planning stage, just with utility maps, not with the markings out there. And then once we get to so kind of an output there would be, you know, seeing which alignment, which streets may have more slots available for large diameter pipelines. So that's the output there. Or the design process, obviously we do the design drawings. So finding alignment within a particular street that's already been selected by our planning group requires knowledge of what other utilities and where they're located within the street.
Great. Yeah, so you're kind of describing what you're using it for. What's kind of your desired product when you get to that point, you know, I guess turning over to construction, but your desired product you're looking for in the designing and planning phase or process?
Yeah, so on the designing phase, yes, basically plan a profile of our alignment, which requires at least a plan view information of other utilities. And we'll frequently pothole, do extensive potholing. At that point, we get USA marking, which is nice. But to even know what to pothole, we kind of need to know what's out there.
Great, thank you.
That was the last hand raised.
All right. Yeah, well, Gus, thank you. You did mention one thing that my experience shows, and it's historically when you need to get some feedback from the operators, potholing is a good method, not only to find, you know, depths of what you're looking for and finding location, but at the same time, by doing the potholing, you're actually calling an 811 ticket, which brings people out to mark the surface marks. And I guess I go back to you with a question. Does anybody else, or do you do that and use that information when the field marks for generating your background maps?
Yeah, we We definitely do. And yeah, sometimes we kind of have to expand maybe pothole areas that we weren't going to pothole anyway, just to get these USA marks. So it's kind of like yeah, exactly like a sideways process to get the USA marks. So it'd be great if that was actually an actual process for door design rather than adding extra potholes just to get the USA marks in a certain area.
Right. All right, anybody else? So we did kind of cover the types of projects. Member Johnson mentioned the big projects, the DOT projects, but as engineers, I know my experience will be, even if you're doing, and like Gus had said, he's laying out a pipeline down the road. He's looking for open slots. He's looking for that information. And I got my phone ringing at the same time, but yeah, he's looking for information to align, figure where his lineman is. He's looking for, trying to find a good safe spot. So there's multiple projects, big ones, little ones, even. There's all kinds of different projects where the engineer up front, you would save a lot of time and a lot of conflicts in the field if you had that ability to identify the work up front before bringing out a general or the underground contractor.
Tony does have his hand raised.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you. Yeah, just wanted to follow up with more questions and answers. But yeah, as you stated, Member Johns, so Marshall, Member Johnson mentioned any things that might require relocations. Talking about highway projects, and Mr. Sakala talked about using projects in which you were putting down another type of facility. In January, so I guess that's last month still, the board looked at the San Francisco incident. And one of the things about the incident that was interesting, there was more than one issue associated with it. But one of them was that the planning document didn't include any underground facilities. And so the alignment was essentially done by the front end excavator. So one of the things that would be good to hear is if that's something whenever you're installing a facility that merits some sort of advanced planning design document product, or if there's only specific types of facilities that would require it, or if there's a difference between things that are happening in urban areas or rural areas.
No, that's a great point. In that example, that was putting in a fiber optic line and communication line in the existing area. One advantage I see the design tickets and having engineers and planners up front is providing that overall information for the site too. I mean, if you do have an incident, you're looking for lines, at least you have more information than just at the mercy of knowing where your line is and the USA surface marks. If you have a little history and ideally with Sue, it's supposed to tell you level A, B, C, or D. So it gives you a level of accuracy that the engineer expects. But yeah, improved. And I think we'll probably get to that, probably talking to some of the contractors involved, ultimately towards the end here, that the benefits of having better field construction drawings at the time, how that would improve safety. So kind of moving towards that, but yeah, that's a fine example there.
There's no more hands raised.
Okay. All right, so if we can move on to the design question number 2, then that's the next slide. So what information do you need in the design process? How do you get it? And what are the hurdles in getting the information you need? So this would be your planning a project is like, how do you go about doing it? I'd like to hear kind of how you do it and what you encounter. So if they can help provide some background to us on that.
Just to remind the callers that have called in, if you press #2, you will be raising your hand and you could make comment at that point in time. And then again, the raise hand function within Zoom itself to make comment or join the discussion. First hand raised is from caller 2349. If you could announce your name and join the discussion, caller.
Good afternoon. My name is Ken Marshall. We actually work for a company that manages oil and gas lines. So we're kind of on the other end of this, where we lay down the USA markings and also respond to them and provide standby for contractors. Probably the biggest thing that I would like to see when we were talking just a moment ago about dissemination of the information is somewhat of a central database for drawings once they are complete and for as-built drawings. That's what I'd like to see.
Great, thank you, Ken. Yeah, that is a big issue, and right now, kind of identifying the needs, but ultimately how you do it, and that would be, yeah, we need to address that in a common sense manner to get the information to the people that need it. So thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Next person has their hand raised is Gus again. Gus, you can go ahead and join the discussion again.
Hello. So yeah, I think I kind of touched on this previously, but I'll just give a little background on what we do. We request the maps from various operators, and then we do a kind of a base drawing based on those maps and our own survey information. And at that point, typically we select pothole locations to pothole utilities that may be in our alignment. One of the hurdles is when we select those pothole locations, sometimes when USA marks are actually down, they don't agree at all with the maps we received. So going back to the previous commenter, as-built map or as-built drawings are usually helpful, but very hard to obtain, even if we have a contact at an agency. The maps are typically schematic only, but actually getting to the as-built level to see what's actually in the ground and locating it, if it's outside of our USA brackets or whatever, for when we're potholing, it's really hard to get that information out to actually find where the pipelines are.
Perfect. Thank you, Gus. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir with me here, but yeah, the process that you have, yeah, contacting the utility owners, and well, let me go back to you. One more question, a follow-up then, Gus. How do you identify the utility owners, who you're targeting and getting the information from?
Typically, we have a list, we're confined to a certain geographic area, and we have a list of the typical, gas, electric, communications. We're the water, so we know the water. So we basically go off of that list. I think some designers do actually go off the, I think, USA North has a list of people in a certain area. I think occasionally someone will go off that list, but that's not our typical route.
Perfect. Yeah, I was kind of getting to that point too. If you do actually use the design, what limited design ticket we have now, you can contact USA North and likewise USA South. They'll provide you a list of you give them your areas, and they will give you the list of the various stakeholders in that area, these contact names. Gus, when you do ask for information, are you success? How does that work as far as you dealing with them? How do they provide you good maps? What do you think?
It varies based on agency. Some of them have a pretty defined, turnaround time, and they get you the information you look for. Some of them require multiple reach outs, or you're speaking into the abyss, you don't get any response. So it varies.
Okay. Yeah, I do kind of the same things, and I know some of the other designers on the call here, they have the same approach, and it is all over the map. No pun intended. That what they give you, some different scales, the age of the maps. Some charge you too. I mean, if you contact certain agencies, they're going to charge you to pull the maps and send them to you. So anyway, yeah, it's tough as a designer to get good information. Anybody else have any comments on this?
Looks like Marshall does.
Yeah, remember, John, I can go through the process as a receiver of the request, because it does most of the time comes from the one call center information on the database to say, hey, who has facilities in those areas? And being that contact, I can tell you now that that's an email that's sent directly to me. And the reason why it's sent to me is because we have a large scope area, and we have multiple engineers. We have thousands of engineers, and as opposed to creating a major delay, it just channels through me, and then I will disseminate the information to let them know who to send the information to. But the key is to ensure that what information is sent is everything that we need. You need to know what city, because California is a pretty large city. I mean, a large state, and we just get an information with streets on it. But it'll help if we can have the state included, and the city, I'm sorry, included along with the actual location that you're doing. Also, it's important to share with us, because sometimes you just want information. Some people just call and want to know whether or not it's the PUE information, and some others just want actual, for that one location. But we're one of those that may charge because we wanted the supporting document to allow authorization for you to pull that information, and that's most of the time, is not included. So if you're working for a city or a municipality, that information is needed. So.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's good feedback. Yeah, because we're seeking your information, but to get that information, yeah, like I say, it's good background to understand. We can see, come up with plans that understand and accommodate everybody's input. Any other hands up, James? I'm going to pick on. I see Ann Diamond, you're on. Could you offer input from the call center's take on and what you provide and how many people use it, and kind of give us that perspective?
Certainly, Member Johns. From the call center point of view, at least for Dig Alert, we have a subscription for engineering companies to be able to get a list of our members who are in a specific area. I'm not exactly sure how many people are using it. I would probably say 50 to 100 different engineering companies. Our biggest problem is to make sure that our members keep their information updated so that when an engineering company wants to get that information, they are getting the most accurate information available as to who to contact. We do provide, like I say, we do provide a list of the company in that area, the engineering contact, telephone number, email, and address if that has been provided by our members.
Great, thank you. That's good input. And then you're going back to what Member Johnson was saying, identifying what he needs to provide information. It seems like that's standardizing what the requests are and letting the engineers know proper parameters, almost even like standardizing forms or something like that might be a good way to implement things and get better communication and less confusion and more efficient.
Yes, Member Johns, the way that the engineering companies are able to determine the members in that area is that they basically put in the county, the city, the street, and draw kind of a map to be able to get the list of the members for that area.
Yeah, I know in my own case, I'll try to create my project background map, just at least the edges and parameters of it, and provide that to the operators when I send the requests, trying to get them to help populate that area. So it's, because basically I think that's what we're trying to do, is just build a good background map almost before we start laying out our lines like Gus had described. And but yeah, just getting trying to have this retroactively creating an as-built of the area where you're digging, but it's just like no one person has that information. So kind of the engineer is the one source is trying to put it all together.
And we here at the centers definitely want to make sure that if someone is potholing, to be able to determine where lines are, they definitely need to get a ticket. But if they are in the designing phase of it, we don't want to waste the resources of our members having to go out and mark those lines, and they're not actually going to be doing any type of work for, 6 months.
Exactly. Yeah, I certainly, we all know the operators and the number of tickets you got are just astronomical, going up all the time. So it's using the best use of those resources in the field is an important objective of this, of a design ticket plan. So any other questions or any comments that you have, even outside of the designer mode? This is but getting your take as experienced, and anybody have any experiences in trying to prepare drawings or recognizing the importance of them that they want to offer?
Looks like Randy has his hand raised. Randy? Member Tarland?
Sorry, I have to unmute. Sorry. So on the side of the locating side, when we're out there for design tickets and we have discussions with them, some of this information we learn is through field meets and things like that. But the type of design info that we experience is one that's a USA design type that, technicians are going to go out in the field and actually put field markings down. And then I believe there's another side of design work it's requests made right through the utilities or anybody, the owners of underground facilities that may have underground facilities, and then they can map it. So there's those two that we hear about or know about. And then in the design project that we experience out there, when it does become a one call ticket, there's ones where we get, they want to know what is out there, and they'll send in a ticket to see how much field markings will be just placed, but there's not going to be any digging or anything like that. And then we get some that come through where it's a bidding process where people are going to bid on these jobs and they want to know what kind of conflict they have. And and there's the ones that want to know about conflicts they're going to have in, maybe they have more information that, and they typically do not put delineations down that shows exactly where they're working. It's more of the bracketing that happens, which is kind of a locator's nightmare because we're going to mark so much, and we would really rather have, you know, the run. If you're putting in a water line, if it's going to go down mainly down one side of the street and then just have some laterals, a lot easier to do than, you know, just marking everything all over the place. And I understand why they want it, because they want to see what kind of conflict they're going to have. And then there's like what Ann brought up, the potholing and tickets that actually have some digging that's going to go on. But I kind of wanted to throw those out there that maybe people can kind of say what they're doing or what issues they have. I want to kind of stay away from the challenges that we have with all this. I think that'll be all brought up later. But that's kind of what we experience out there, a non-USA, which kind of happens without us, and then the USA when we're actually going out and marking for these people. Having said all that, I really like the process of excavators or contractors or designers being the most knowledgeable when they get to the process of sending in a ticket. And because locators and the field people do not always have the most updated information to be marking out there. So if there is this route and the first contact is through the ownership to find out what they're saying, because I believe the planning departments probably have the most knowledge of what's going to go out there in the future, or what's being placed, or what has been placed, versus what mapping that field people might have out in the field. And that always causes major concerns or major issues down the road, where it kind of just comes off of a field of what maps they were using, and it messes up design when they don't have all the information. So just kind of from my experience, some of the things we experience.
Thank you, Randy. Yeah, and I think we'll be kind of drifting to that when we get into the operator side of things, you know, the points you brought up, of what information they have and all. Anybody have any comments on what you heard there? The idea of even bidding, you know, people too soon coming out and asking for information and not being really a sanctioned project. I could see that being a problem. People expecting the design operators to help them plan their designs. I mean, we do that, but really we have to, as engineers, designers, need to compile the information and use it, and not rely too heavily on the field people.
We do have one hand raised from Curtis Little. Curtis, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm Curtis. I work for South Placer MED with a sewer district in Rockland, Loomis, Newcastle, outside of Sacramento. And I just wanted to touch on how we manage being the operator of the sewer system, how we manage disseminating the record drawings and maps. At first, through the utility ABC process, we were disseminating paper maps of the area for what the engineer was looking for. And I have a background in GIS, so I came up with some templates to quickly produce those maps. But as we've gone, the way we do it now is we just have a public facing web map that anybody in essentially the world can go look at our data, and it's tied directly to our GIS data on our server. So anytime I update anything, it's immediately up to date. So as far as how to make sure the data is correct and clean and good, my suggestion would be that, because it took away a lot of the background, or a lot of the time waste of creating maps and doing all the research is I just send out a link to that web map, and anybody that needs it can go look at it.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you. So your web map, and that's yours, and you're updating, keeping it up. So if I were to be the engineer, I'd be contacting you, and you'd be giving me access to that. And
yeah, I have a standard email with the link to it in standard language for. It's also on our website. So if you would spmedia.ca.gov, there's a link for it there too. So.
yeah, I'd be interested to see how that would be like for a standard for everyone. Because I haven't really experienced too many people who offered me that type of information in any of my research. I'm pretty much Southern California, but nonetheless, I'm getting paper maps and I'm trying to overlay them and use the scales. And yeah, you can see the problems that occur with that. You start getting extra lines on that, might have a background map that already has some of the other lines on, and when you put them on, you start duplicating, and you can see how the maps can get convoluted real quick. Any comments on that? Anybody?
Mr. Little, do you mind repeating that website one more time, but a little slower for us slow folks out here? I'd appreciate it.
Our district website is spmed.ca.gov.
Thank you.
And just on there, there's a link for the public facing web map, which has a different URL, but it's a bunch of different letters, and it's not anything I could recite off, but you would just click on a map and it'll launch you to that web map. And then there's a disclaimer to read through as far as how to use the data. And then you click on it and you can search for an address. There's a couple different base maps you can turn on and off, and you can see just some of our data. It's like a pared down version of the data that we use internally. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next hand raised is from David Wright.
Yeah.
David, you should be able to unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the point I was going to bring up, I'm from the petroleum industry, and one of the issues we've had is that the DOT does not want the petroleum industry and the natural gas industry to be putting their locations of their pipeline systems out to the public for fear of terrorist activity.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot, and obviously, yeah, there's lots of facets to everything in the business here. So, yeah, there is security issues to be considered, and it's a really good point.
Yeah, I don't know. The internal discussion that we had about that was there was always the the fear of terrorism or terrorist activity, or someone opening a manhole and dumping whatever down the manhole. But the way that I looked at it was, I guess, and I can't speak for gas and electric and any other utility, but for sewer, like if I walk out to my street, I know where the manhole is anyways. I don't need a map to find a manhole out in the street, like right in front of my house. And it just made our staff, which is relatively small, it made disseminating that information smoother and easier and less time intensive.
Ready?
David?
Yeah, am I still unmuted?
Yeah, so you are.
Okay. The point I would make, though, is for people that are doing design work, one of the best things that could happen is for the petroleum and natural gas industry to be sure that they've got their line marking indicators up to date and well established in the metropolitan areas and rural areas. so that somebody out on the field site can see that there's obviously some sort of utility in the location, and there should be markings on those markers to indicate who you should be able to contact. And here again, the key is keeping that information updated on the part of the operator. And I think that's probably the place where they fall down the most. Is been a lot of mergers and changes, and there's an awful lot of pipeline markers out there that may not have been updated.
Definitely, that's the case. We know how often those companies change, and sadly, my experience that some of the greatest drawings you'll ever see, artwork done, from the designers in the 20s and 30s and 40s and stuff, and these companies get taken over, and their records just get, disappear. Might scan things, but there historically has been a real poor turnover and bringing those drawings forward and keeping them. So part of the need is certainly from henceforward that we have good GIS documentation of lines as we get them, and that the operators have those and maintain their records. It's been too easy to not demand that out of operators over the past. So we need to definitely keep good record drawings moving forward.
No other hands raised currently.
Okay, in that case, let's move ahead to next slide. So discussion question 3. This is addressed to operators. So you're getting your chance here. We've kind of focused on engineers, designers. So now, as the operator, what challenges do operators experience in processing planning and design requests? I know we kind of touched upon that, but now we're looking in detail on that. And then what information do you not provide when responding to planning and design requests? We kind of touched upon that, but I think there's still a lot of discussion room there. So I'd like to hear what you think about those questions.
Just to remind the callers, excuse me, press #2 to raise your hand. And then, of course, the raise hand function within Zoom if you want to join the discussion.
And might I make this a futuristic question by saying, if we did require design tickets, or and increase it and just say, hey, we need to provide when an engineer a certain level of responsibility required, but if you as an operator get requests by engineers, how would that affect you too? So I know you're busy now, but looking for a discussion on how you might be affected by this.
Caller with the last 4 digits of 8319 has their hand raised. You should be able to unmute yourself now and join the discussion. Can you also announce your name? That would be helpful. Thank you. Caller from 8319. You are.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Hi, my name is Charles Velocity. I'm a damage prevention specialist for Zayo Fiber in both California and Las Vegas, Nevada. I guess one of the biggest challenges I've noticed being an operator and trying to process like planning and design requests is that since I've come on board, some of the records through several mergers and acquisitions, obviously, as we all know, some of those records don't make it to the new company. One of the biggest things I've been trying to do, at least for one of the smaller markets, so that like we can like figure out how to like scale it up to one of our bigger markets is getting a hold of all of the old records and utilizing our locate vendors to try and help us fill in the gaps where there are significant gaps in our records. On top of that, I've also managed the locate side. So between trying to like manage the resources, between trying to get a locator out there to go and check something that I was already looking for, and then trying to perform locate requests for other excavators that are actually excavating in the moment, it becomes a bit overwhelming when the locate requests come in, especially like the larger ones say they want like half a mile, 2 miles, but clearly we all know that they're not excavating anytime soon, but they won't pick up the phone and let us know what they actually need, and if it can simply be resolved by like a simple shapefile or KMZ that I can send to them, and hopefully that fills in the blanks for them until we can get those records. When we do have those records, though, the only information that I know that we don't provide to any engineers or excavators is simply depth, and that's purely because over time, road grades change. It's possible that it was lowered or raised for whatever like emergency purpose. So that, as far as I know, the only thing we don't hand out is depth unless we're actually on site and we're with them potholing with it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Benjamin Chameleon, you should be able to unmute yourself and join the conversation.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. Hi, this is Ben Camelon. I'm with the Marin Municipal Water District in Northern California, Bay Area. The challenges we have, as far as I can see, I'm in the engineering records group, and we're the group that kind of maintains all our as-built record information, and we also respond to USA tickets. So the challenge I see is that in general, if it's a planning and design ticket request, that it gets kind of mixed in with the rest of the other tickets for excavation. And so with limited amount of staff to respond to actual mark and locate, then that kind of just grows the workload. Yeah, so that's, I think, the most challenging thing as far as that aspect. If it was to change, if we were to have separate design tickets and the time frame for responding would be different, then I think that's a good load off the work group. And as far as information we do not provide, we just mark everything that we have that's active according to our record drawings. So I guess we kind of don't, if we have it, we'll give it, we'll mark it on there. Aside from, well, I guess abandoned pipelines, we just marked abandoned because we don't know, since we abandoned it, we don't really know what's happened to it. So we would not mark or even confirm that it's an abandoned line. Because there's no way to know what happened after the abandonment. So that's it.
Great. And yeah, the abandoned line, that's a topic for another discussion. So we'll worry about that. So yes, certainly everybody's overworked. So that's a good point you brought up, in that design tickets would need to be certainly not a 72-hour turnaround. They would be working with a group, and I think to accomplish that would have to provide some good regulations and rules to adhere to. Let me ask you, Benjamin, just your record drawings, and not just you, I think you're speaking for the industry, but how accurate are they? I mean, they're improving, obviously, but you have old lines and things like that. what's the status thing? So if you send your line writer out to mark something, how successful are they in readily finding them and accuracy? Can you comment on that? I know it might be not trying to push you too hard, but just really kind of give us an understanding of you know, what you as a operator kind of have at your disposal to implement and turn over to a design group.
Sure. Yeah. So we have a combination. So we have a GIS in addition to our record drawings, which are comprised of as-built record drawings that are in PDF form. So between the two sources, and nothing's 100%. Sometimes the GIS may be off, so it would look more like a schematic. Sometimes the as-built drawing would be off. It wouldn't have the necessary information. But for the most part, I think we're, yeah, as far as accuracy, we're upwards of at least 85, 90%, I would think. You know, we do have a backlog of projects that need to get posted into both record drawings and the GIS. So that's kind of how the tools that we have on hand. And as far as actual pipe locating, we receive our tickets through, you know, mobile devices, iPads. We have access to our mapping out in the field, and also pull up our as-built that way. So we have all those sources of information in the field as long as we have connectivity and are able to mark that accordingly that way.
Thank you.
That was the last hand raised.
Okay. Well, let me kind of open up, yeah, contractors or anybody, just get some other thoughts on it. Kind of focused on designers and operators, but and it was nice to have some with the call center things, but I know we have some contractors and others on board. Even just your thoughts or opinions and even just ideas of moving on. We as a board are looking for seeing viable solutions to help improve safety. Looking to see what you guys think as far as the idea of these design tickets. Currently, there's a couple of states, I think 10 states claim to be working with them, but certainly 2 states right now, Pennsylvania and Colorado, seem to be moving towards having regulated design tickets rules. And along with that comes issues about finances and things like that, how, you know, who would pay and things like that. Not even getting into that, but really just kind of get some general feedback of what we've discussed here in our meeting and what get some ideas of moving forward. Any comments?
And Jason Dennis, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
You know, Bill, I think it's a great idea to have design requests and, you know, planning requests, especially for roadway and utility improvement projects. You look at some of the notes that an excavator gets to try to interpret, you know, as we're analyzing plans and design. You know, I can read one real quick here. The utilities shown have been located from existing drawings. The project design engineer makes no guarantee that the underground utilities shown can compromise all such utilities in the area, either in service or abandoned. The project design engineer further does not warrant that the utilities shown are in the exact location indicated, although he does certify that they are located and accurately as possible from information available. The project design engineer has not physically located the utilities. So that's a common note that we deal with a lot. Same with, you know, the VIF. Here's your design. Go ahead and verify in field that everything is as shown, right? And I think that a lot of costs, strikes, problems, safety, and other concerns can be eliminated by doing a better design outreach program, or, you know, more locating up front to know what's actually out there before someone goes and starts truly excavating.
Good. No, thank you. That's a good comment. I hate to say it, but I use that disclaimer on all my work. You know, it's like, as an engineer, you really do have to protect yourself from everywhere. But you bring up a great point that if we have better, more trustworthy documentation, it is going to save you time in the field of and the confidence working, and it's a win-win once it gets to your level, for the owner, for the public, and for you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
There's currently no other hands raised.
Well, we're kind of running out of our agenda here. You're getting kind of near your last chance, or any comments you have.
Yeah, we got one more hand, actually, Mike Mcintosh.
There we go.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mike McIntosh from D&M Utility Services, and we pretty much specialize in plan and profile design work. And you talk about other states that do it. I have an office in Colorado, and so I'm quite familiar with the design process, because, as you know, they created a law there that they're requiring the plan and profile, whether it be a complete plan and profile or just a design for the utility is going to place any new utility. And I think here in California, they really need to start using more third-party companies to go out and do the due diligence of actually contacting the utility owners for copies of their prints that they have, and then physically locating all the utilities in the field and putting them on a drawing before they create the running line and where they propose to go based on the conflicts. And then they actually do the potholing process with it. And that's part of the damage prevention, to make sure that these utilities, because a lot of the bore contractors or even water contractors, they don't get paid to pothole in their pricing. They give them a straight price. So, they take the risk of damaging the facility with having a plan and profile created. That'll alleviate some of the risk out there, because we're going to pothole and identify the utilities that are in conflict. And there's got to be a little bit easier way. I noticed coming from Colorado, like in Colorado, I can submit information right to the utility owners with a quick form and a map of the area that we're proposing, that we're requiring prints from. And usually within 3 to 5 days, we'll get a response back with those prints. Here in California, it's a little bit more difficult because, like you said, we can go on to the 811 site and we can get a list, put our information in where our proposed work areas, and get a list of all the utility owners and their contact information. And then when we reach out to them, not all the utility owners respond back. It might require 1 or 2, maybe even 3, if a response comes back to get a copy of their maps. Or like the one gentleman said that, hey, if you're not doing any work for a city and municipality, then sometimes require you to pay to obtain those prints in order to protect those facilities. And that, that's the biggest issue they have, because a lot of the engineering companies will come out and also, like I said, use the 811 system to create a design, which, as we know, all the 811 locators, they have a full plate when they show up. So they're kind of in a hurry to get the things marked. If it's not pre-marked, they're not going to mark it. Or how accurate are they truly when they get it marked. And by having a third company party, like which we do, we have a zero tolerance. We need to make sure that all the utilities are identified, they're located accurately, and they're depicted accurately in all our drawings. So when a contractor comes out, he should be able to design right where that approved design was without any conflict or running into an issue that, hey, we didn't have a utility come out and mark and we're designed to put it here. And now there's, for instance, there's a fiber company right in that route. Now we got to go back to a redesign process, which costs everybody money.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they should be using, and this is just my opinion, the 811 to gain their information that's marked in the field to do a design. That should be, cost should go on the utility owner who's designing to place that utility or new facility in the ground. And they need to go to that process with that. And that's one of the reasons why Colorado, and I'm speaking for that area, they went to that part to help alleviate the damages and require people to do the due diligence where they're going to place their utility, because the right-of-ways are getting so congested with new utilities, abandoned utilities, there's no place to place any new facilities.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. What do you, Mike, have you got any feedback then from Colorado? Just, initial reaction. I know it's, they've transitioned. I think they've been in effect for the last year or so of implementing things. I know it's still being phased, but what's your take on the success of their big ticket program?
I think it's really successful because it alleviates engineering companies or other contractors who are bidding on projects. Like the one gentleman mentioned, hey, we'll call it a locate so we can see what utilities are in the way so we can bid on it because we know the conflict. And that helps alleviate that time frame, and the actual 811 locators can focus on the actual contractors that are digging in the field and not going out wasting their time marking. Like, for example, in Colorado, to call in right-of-way to right-of-way, I mean, for 2,000 feet, that's a long project. And you're wasting the manpower and efforts on something that someone that's not even digging, they're actually designing. And it's proved so far to be a success for everybody. And each municipality has a choice to dictate whether they're going to require the complete plan profile level A, or if they just want a level B plan only to show all the existing utilities that are out there and where they're proposing to put their new utility, because they also have clearance requirements based on if you're paralleling or you're crossing a wet utility, how close you can be to that utility.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you. That was a good insight. Any other?
No other hands raised currently.
All right. We'll move on to slide 12 then. So, before we end today's workshop, are there any other comments on today's topic?
And raised from a caller at 1220. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, yeah, this is Josh with NorCal Pipeline. Everybody hear me?
I hear you, Josh.
Hey, Bill. Quick thing to add. Maybe it's something for a future webinar too. I'm kind of new to this call, but I just wanted to bring up from a subcontractor service hydrovac company. One of the biggest issues we've probably had is it's not in regards to kind of what we've been talking about on this call with planning and those kind of tickets, but just USA tickets in general, where
the law required every excavator to have, you know, USA ticket and delineate your excavation and do all of that that goes along with that process. But I was just curious if it had been brought up in the past, any changes to that, potential changes to that, where an excavator subcontractor to a prime contractor can run under their ticket instead of having to get their own. Just curious if that's been brought up at all.
Haven't really heard it brought up. I know this is just me talking, but yeah, enforcing that rule is kind of a emphasis on things. We have enforcement group on it, but it's probably something for the next, you know, our regular meeting. But no, we haven't brought that up. It's, I think, getting people to call and taking responsibility as their ticket, and eliminating those contracts where you have multiple subcontractors and they're pointing the finger at the general and things like that, saying, "Oh, I thought he had it," and stuff. That I don't foresee any changes in that right now. So, but yeah, kind of noted. But I'd probably look to see that, and maybe you can bring that up in a question on the survey or something.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, I don't see any other hands. I do thank you. It's been, I think, productive meeting. I've learned a lot, and hopefully our staff will be able to glean some information on this. And we just want to thank you all for joining us and for your participation today. And then to continue the discussion, I want to make everyone aware of our new board contact email address. The email is digboard@energysafetydot, that's dot, California.gov. So, and then we also want to remind everybody that the surveys are available and provide an opportunity to share additional thoughts or comments. And there's your survey availability contact. And I'd like to turn it back over to Chair Del Toro.
You're muted, I'm sorry.
I thought for sure I wouldn't do that today. Thank you, Member Johns. Thank you for, I really want to thank everybody that was part of the discussion. Thank everybody that was on here. We had such a diverse group, from operators to contractors, owners, locators, and it's just a great wealth of information. So I really want to thank you all for doing that. Hold on, give me a moment here. My apologies. I have my closing remarks here. Again, thanks. I want to thank the chairs that were also present, the board members, and thanks to staff. There's a lot of work that goes into this. So that concludes the discussion for the planning ticket workshop. Seeing no other business, and if no board members object, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you to all who participated today and took time from your work schedules to share your experience. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.